Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here on this channel, I'll be doing IGCSE Physics related content. So I'll be doing topic questions, past papers, and overall revision. So if you're interested and you have your exams coming up this October or maybe next year, May, June, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming content. So today I will be doing IGCSE Physics Paper 2 for the 2023 series. Now, for those who do not know, Paper 2 is a multiple choice question and it has 40 marks and it has 40 questions. So let's start with the first question. Forces of 3 Newton and 4 Newton, so we have 3 Newton and 4 Newton, act at right angles as shown. What's the resultant force? Now we can see these two forces, they're acting at 90 degrees. So if two forces are acting at 90 degrees, we can use the triangle rule. So we can match them with head to tail. So we have the 3 Newton force and then the 4 Newton force. So the 4 Newton and the 3 Newton. So what we can do is this diagonal over here, or this hypotenuse of the right angle, is our resultant force. So we can use simple Pythagoras. So if the two legs of the right angle are 3 and 4, that means this would be 5, because 4 squared plus 3 squared is equals to 5 squared. And the direction is also to the top right corner of the screen. So this is the direction, which is OY. So our option over here is going to be 5 Newton along OY, which is C. Number 2. A light ball is held at rest at the top of a tall cliff. It is released and falls through the air, eventually reaching its terminal velocity. Okay, so terminal velocity means where the forces are equal, so the resultant force is going to be 0 and the object is going to be moving at a constant speed. Which row describes the behavior of the ball as it descends? So we know that at the end, or the final acceleration of the ball is going to be 0, because terminal velocity refers to a constant speed. So that means if there's a constant speed, acceleration is going to be 0. So B is not the answer, and so is not D. And then the initial acceleration. So any object free falling has an initial acceleration of g, which equals to 9.8 meters per second squared. So our choice is going to be C. Number 3. The graph represents the motion of a car. How far has the car moved between 0 and 5 seconds? So we're given a speed time graph and we're asked to find the distance. So the distance of a speed time graph is just the area. And we know this is a triangle. So we just have to find the area of this triangle. So that is half base times height. So the base is 5 and the height is going to be 10. So 5 times 10 over 2, which is 25. So our answer is going to be C. Number 4. Which statement about mass or weight is not correct? Masses can be compared using balance. That's definitely correct. Mass is a force. Now this is incorrect because mass is not a force. Weight is the one that's a force. Number 5. A sphere P made of steel has weight of 10 newtons on Earth. So 10 newtons on Earth. Another sphere Q, also made of steel, has a weight of 10 newtons on Mars. The gravitational field strength on Earth is greater than the gravitational field strength on Mars, which is correct. So we know that the gravity of Earth is greater than the gravity in Mars. So if that's the case and they have the same weight, that means the mass of sphere Q, so mass of Q is greater than the mass of P. So let's see which statement stays the same. The mass of sphere P is the same. That's not correct. The mass of sphere P is less than mass of sphere Q. So the mass P is less than Q. So the answer is going to be B. Number 6. Which two quantities must be known to determine the density of a material? So density is simply mass over volume. So the answer is going to be B. Number 7. A truck is towing a car along a straight horizontal road at a constant speed. So let's mark this constant speed. The rope breaks. Which row gives the direction of the initial acceleration of the truck after the rope breaks and the reason for the acceleration? So in this question, if this rope over here breaks, that means this truck would move to the right with an increasing speed. And then this is because once the car is separated from the truck, there would be less drag force or less friction. So our choice is going to be C. It's going to move to the right, and the driving force is greater than the resistive force. So our answer is C. Number 8. A uniform beam is pivoted at a center of two identical masses, X and Y. So X and Y are identical, are placed so that the beam balances. A smaller mass is then added at the position shown. This position over here, a small mass is added, and then how can the masses be positioned so the beam balances again? So for the beam to balance, that means the moment, so this clockwise moment should be equal to the anti-clockwise moment, and we know that moment is equals to force times the distance. So now on the right side we have two objects, object X and this small mass. So that means this moment is going to be increasing. This is increased moment downwards. So that means to balance it, we have to move Y a bit backwards so that the moment would be equal. So our option here is going to be B. So we can either move this backward or we can move this frontwards. So this would give us an equal moment. Number 9. A resultant force of 2 Newton acts on an object of mass 3 kg for 6 seconds. What is the change in velocity of the object? To calculate the change in velocity, first we have to find the acceleration. We know that force is equals to mass times acceleration. So we're given the force, which is 2 newtons, and the mass, which is 3 kilograms, and we don't have the acceleration. So just times A. Divide both sides by 3. So acceleration is the same as 2 over 3. And now, since we have acceleration, the other formula is that the acceleration is v over t. So we're given the time, which is 6 seconds. And acceleration we have 2 over 3. So we can do 2 over 3 is equals to the speed over the time, which is 6. We can do cross multiplication, and that would be 12 is equals to 3v. Divide both sides by 3, and then our speed should be equals to 4 meters per second, which is C. Number 10. The diagram shows the energy stores of mobile cell phone and how the energy is transferred between stores. So we have chemical energy and change in energy, and then we have internal energy and then kinetic, and then from the internal energy we have heating, and from the kinetic energy we have sound. Which row describes how the chemical energy is transferred? Okay, so to determine which chemical energy is transferred, we know that all this is happening in a mobile cell. So in a mobile cell, like for the battery, a chemical reaction happens in a battery cell, and then that's how electrical energy is provided. So for this answer, it's going to be A, because in a mobile cell, electrical work done is going to happen, and then the chemical energy would be converted to electrical energy. Number 11. A wind turbine is 30% efficient and has an output of 2.5 megawatts of electrical power. what's the power input of the turbine? Power input. So we know the formula for efficiency is the output power over the input power times 100. That's the formula for efficiency. So we can substitute the values. So we have an output power of 2.5 divided by the input power. It would give us a 30% efficiency. So 30% is the same as 0.3. Is equal to 0.3. We can do cross multiplication. So 0.3i is equals to 2.5. Divide both sides by 0.3. We would get I is the same as 8.333. And that would be B. Number 12. Which physical quantity must be used to calculate the power developed by a student running up a flight of steps? Let's look at the choices. Force extended and the vertical height of the steps only. Now, this is not correct because the formula for power is energy transferred over time, or power is the same as work done over time. So in this case, the answer would be D. We need work done and the time taken. Let's move on to number 13. The density of seawater is 1030 kilogram meters per second cubed. No, meter cubed, sorry. The gravitational field strength on the Earth is 9.8 Newton per kilogram. Atmospheric pressure is 101,000 pascals. At which depth in the sea is the total pressure due to the atmospheric pressure and the water equals to 513,000 pascals? So what this question basically telling us is that we have pressure due to the atmosphere over here, and we have pressure to water. And then when those two are added, it should be equal to 513,000 pascals. So now we have to find the height in which this would be true. So we know that pressure due to water is density times gravity times height. So let's exchange substitute the values. So density is 1030 times the gravity, which is 9.8, times the height, which we do not know. And then we add this to the atmospheric pressure, which is 101,000 pascals, would be equals to 513,000 pascals. So now we just make H subject of the formula. So subtract 101,000 from both sides. And then that would give us 412,000. And then we should divide both sides by 1030 times 9.8. And then we divide this also by 1030 times 9.8. And when we divide this should give us 40.816. So this is A. Our answer for number 13 is going to be A. If you're enjoying this so far, make sure to subscribe and like. Number 14. For students, describe the phrase absolute zero during the lesson in a particle model. Which student is correct? So absolute zero is a temperature which is equals to 0 kelvins or negative 273 degrees Celsius. And it's the lowest possible temperature. So that's going to be A. This is the lowest possible temperature. Number 15. 4 students are asked to state and explain the relative magnitudes of thermal expansion, of solids and gases. Which student is correct? So in this question, we focus on the thermal expansion of solids and gases. So we know that the force of attraction between solids is very strong. That's why solids are very close to each other. This is for solids. And the force of attraction between gases is very low. So that means gases can expand easily. So this choice is going to be B, because gases expand more than solids. That's true, because attractive forces between molecules are much weaker in gases. Number 16. 4 cups, A, B, C, and D, contain hot coffee. Which cup keeps the coffee warm the longest? So this question is probably about thermal emission and thermal radiation. Okay, so if we want the cup that keeps the coffee warm for the longest, we need 2 things. The first one is we don't need the cup to be black, because black is a good thermal emitter, so it would lose more heat. So we don't need black, so neither A nor B. And obviously it needs to be covered with a lid so that no evaporation would happen. So our answer is going to be C. Number 17. The diagram shows a wave. What are the amplitude and the wavelength of this wave? So the wavelength is a distance between 2 of the same point. So we have this point and this point. So this is a wavelength. And the amplitude is the height of the maximum height of a wave. So it's going to be this over here, 3 meters. So 3 and 8, which is B. Number 18. Optical fibers are used to transmit digital signals using infrared radiation. The average refractive index of the fibers is 1.5. Let's not forget this part, which describes a digital signal and gives the speed of infrared radiation in the fibers. So to find the speed of infrared radiation in the fibers, we use this formula. So the refractive index N is the same as speed of light in air, or speed of any electromagnetic wave in air, speed in the air, over the speed in the medium. So that would mean 1.5 would equals to speed of light in air is always 3 times 10 to the power of 8 over, we don't know this part, so we can just leave it x. So we can rearrange the formula, and x would be 3 times 10 to the power of 8 over 1.5. So we know that 3 over 1.5 is 2, and then we have times 10 to the power of 8. So we can cancel out B and D. And a digital signal is a signal that contains only 2 values, 0, 1, true, false, yes or no. So it's going to be A. Let's move on to number 19. Which statement describes monochromatic light? A. Light with single frequency. Now that's monochromatic light. So monochromatic light is a light with a single frequency. So that's why, like, if we're looking at a monochromatic light, it's usually black and white. So there are no colors. Number 20. A beam of light consists of yellow and blue light. The beam of light is incident on a glass prism. Which diagram is correct? So let's look at all the diagrams over here. So when we look at A, this is approximately the incident. So the rays should be going down and not up. So A is not correct. And so is not B. Now C seems correct. But then the problem with C is blue light is not above yellow. It should be the other way around, because we can look at VibGR. This is like the different colors in the white light. So we have blue over here, and then we have yellow over here. So we know that blue is lower than yellow. So this, like this, blue lower than yellow. So the answer is going to be D. Number 21. A radio station broadcasts a signal with a frequency of 89 megahertz. What's the wavelength of this signal? So to solve this question, First, we have to know what the speed of light in air is. So that is going to be 3 times 10 to the power of 8. And we have 89 megahertz. So we know that the formula is speed is the same as wavelength times frequency. So we can rearrange the formula to find the wavelengths, divide both sides by frequency. So wavelength is the speed over frequency. The speed is 3 times 10 to the power of 8 over 89. So megahertz symbolizes 10 to the power of 6. So we can do times 10 to the power of 6. And then we can just divide this, and then we would get 3.37. So now this 3.37 can be rounded out to 3.4, which is going to be B. Let's move on to number 22. A boy shouts and hears the echo from the tall building 2.2 seconds later. The speed of sound in air is 330 meters per second. They've been kind enough to give us the speed, but we have to know it by heart. How far away from the boy is the building? So now when we're working with echoes, speed is the same as 2 times the distance over the time. So we can rearrange the formula. So v times t is equals to 2 times the distance, and then both sides divided by 2. This is the distance, speed times time over 2. So we have the speed 330. So we can do 330 times 2.2. That would be 726. So 330 times 2.2 would be 726. And then we just divide that by 2. Divided by 2, that would give us 363, which can be rounded up to 360, which is going to be C. Number 23. The magnetic field of a bar magnet can be represented by magnetic field lines. So this magnetic field lines always go from the north to the south. Which diagram shows two magnetic field lines correctly? So on this one, it has to be A, because over here, let's assume there's another magnet. So what happens is it always goes from the north to the south. So if there's another magnet with the south pole, it always goes that direction. And if we have another magnet which has a north, it always comes to the south. So it's going to be A. Number 24. A plastic rod is rubbed with dry cloth. The rod becomes positively charged. Why has the rod become positively charged? So it becomes positively charged because it loses electrons. Now it doesn't gain protons because protons do not move. So charge is determined by losing or gaining electrons, and since electrons are negatively charged, it loses electrons, becomes positively charged. Number 25. Which statement about electric current in a conductor is correct? Let's look at the choices. In a DC circuit, the electric current gradually decreases along a conductor. This is not correct. In a DC circuit, free electrons flow back and forth. Now their movement is not going to be back and forth. It's going to be in one straight flow, not back and forth. Number C. In an AC circuit, the electric current remains exactly the same at all time. It's not correct. In AC stands for alternating current, so it's not going to stay the same. In an AC current, the flow of charge changes direction continually. Now this part is correct because in AC current, the direction of current continuously changes back and forth. So that part is correct. Number 26. A piece of metal wire X with a uniform diameter has a resistance R. A second piece of wire is made of the same metal, so it's made of the same metal and has a uniform diameter. Y has double the cross-sectional area of X and half the length of X. What's the resistance of Y? So Y, it has double the cross-sectional area of X, so that means more electrons can pass through. Twice the electrons can pass through than through X. So there would be less resistance. So resistance decreases because of that. And then it has half the length. So since it's half the length, those charges are going to be moving for a short distance. So the resistance decreases again. So the resistance decreases because of two factors. So over here, it has double the cross-sectional area, so the resistance becomes divided by 2. And over here too, the resistance becomes divided by 2 because it's half the length of x. So, and then we can have this. So if the resistance is divided by 2 and then divided by 2 again, that would be divided by 4. So the answer is going to be A. Number 27. An electric fire is connected to a 240 volts supply and transfers energy at a rate of 1 kilowatts. This is the same as 1000 watts. How much charge passes through the fire in 1 hour, which is equivalent to 3600 seconds. We'll be using SI units here. So now, first we have to find the current. So we know that power is the same as VI. So power is 1000 watts and voltage is 240 times I. So we divide both sides by 240. So that would give us 4.167. That's the current. And now we use the formula for current. So current is the charge over time. So we are given the time, which is 3600. So we do 4.167 equals to Q over 3600. Now we multiply this too. So the current times 3600. So that would give us 15,000. So now it's going to be C. 15,000 written in standard form, 1.5 times 10 to the power 4. Let's move on to number 28. The lamps are connected in parallel. Which switches must be closed so that both lamps light? So we want this lamp to light and this one to light too. So obviously this two should be closed because current is going to be flowing this direction. And then S1 should also close because we need to form a complete circuit for both lamps to light. And then S3 should also be closed because if S3 is not closed, only this lamp would light because there's not a complete circuit forming around the first lamp over here. So all three switches must be closed. So it's going to be D, S1, S2, and S3. Let's move on to number 29. The diagram shows a circuit that switches on a lamp when there is a change in the environment. So the lamp is switched on when there is a change in the environment. So it's using a relay. Which change in the environment causes the lamp to be switched on? So now we have to be careful here. Let's see what component we're given. So this is a thermistor. And these two are just resistors. So now a thermistor is dependent on temperature. So we can remove choice A because it has nothing to do with light intensity. Now when the temperature is increased, the resistance increases. That's how a thermistor works. So the resistance increases, so less current would be allowed to pass. So that's how the relay works. And then this switch would be turned on. This two would connect and the switch would be turned on. So our answer is going to be an increase in temperature, which is going to be D. Number 30. A step-down transformer is 100% efficient. 100% efficient. It has an input voltage of 240 volts and an output voltage of 600 volts AC. the current in the primary is coil is 0.5 amps. What's the current in the secondary coil? So if a transformer is 100% efficient, that means is the voltage in the primary times the current in the primary is equals to the voltage in the secondary times the current in the secondary. So let's just substitute them values. So input voltage, that's 240 times the primary coil, the current in the primary coil, which is 0.5, is equals to 60 times I. So now we divide both sides by 60. So 240 times 0.5, that would give us 120 over 60. That's basically 2 amps, which is going to be C. Number 31. The diagram shows the pattern of a magnetic field due to the current I in a straight wire. Which row is correct? So now we're looking at direction of field and relative strength of field. So since Q over here is closer to the center than P, and that means Q has a greater magnetic field than P. So we can remove A and B. And then now to determine the direction of magnetic field, if it is set up like this and we have the current going down, we use the right hand thumb rule. So when we use the right hand thumb rule or the right hand grip rule, we have our thumb, I'll try to draw this, but I'm not a good artist, pointing down to the direction of the current, and then we'll have a grip. So that means our fingers would be going like this. So our fingers are wrapping around in this direction. So that means our answer is going to be in Y. We can use our right hand and we'll point our thumbs downward. So that means our grip would be forming in an anti-clockwise direction. So that means it's going to be Y. So answer is going to be D. Number 32. In which device is the magnetic effect of current not used in an electromagnet? Now that is used. A loudspeaker, that's definitely used. A potential divider. So potential divider doesn't use the magnetic effect of an electricity, because a potential divider is a device that is used to split the voltage across two devices using resistors. So it uses resistors and not the magnetic effect of a current. Number 33. Fission and fusion are two types of nuclear process. How does the total mass of the nuclides produced compare with the total mass of the original nuclide or nuclides in nuclear process? That is so much nuclear. Okay, total mass of fission product compared original. So in nuclear fission, so this is fission, we have one big nucleus, and then a neutron hits it at high speed and it splits into two nuclei. So the total mass of that, the total mass is going to be less. It's going to decrease. So we can remove A and B. And then for nuclear fusion, what happens is we have two, and then those two would join together to form one big nucleus. But then this nucleus is less than the mass of the two combined. So this, if we have M1 and then M2, and if this is M3, so M1 plus M2 is going to be greater than M3. Because in the nuclear fusion, energy is released and some particles are also removed from the nucleus. So that means the mass is also going to decrease. So our option is going to be D. Both of the masses of the product is going to be less compared to the original ones. Number 34. The table shows the composition of three different nuclei. which nuclei are isotopes of the same element. So isotope of the same element, they have equal number of protons but different number of neutrons. So we should look at equal number of protons, so both 3 and 3, and number of neutrons is also different. So for this, it should be X and Y for the isotopes of the same element, which is going to be B. Number 35. Which change occurs in nucleus of a radioactive atom during a B emission or a beta emission? So what happens in a beta emission is we have a neutron and then it would split into a proton and an electron. And this proton would stay in the nucleus and the electron would be removed. So the mass, so if we have an atom X and after a beta emission, that means this number, the atomic number, would increase, but the mass number is going to stay the same because mass number is the sum of the proton plus the neutron. So if the mass number, if one proton is increased and the neutron is decreased, there's not going to be any change. So what happens is a neutron transforms into a proton and an electron. Number 36. A radioactive isotope has a half-life of 8 days. A detector close to a sample of this isotope gives a count rate of 200 counts per minute. Without the source, the background count is going to be 20 counts per minute. What's the count rate due to the source after 8 days? So to do this, first, this is considered as a background radiation, so it has to be removed. So 200 minus 20, which is 180. So the original count rate of the sample is 180. And then we're asked the count rate after 8 days. And this 8 days is the half-life. So after 8 days, it would halve. So 180 over 2 would become 90. So this is the sample, the count rate of the sample after 8 days. So it's going to be B. Number 37. Which statements about the solar system is correct? Let's look at the options. A. All planets are rocky. Now that's incorrect because only the first 4 are rocky and then the remaining are gaseous. Only the Earth has a moon. That's also incorrect because other planets also have moons. Pluto is a dwarf planet. Now that is correct because Pluto is too small to be considered an actual planet, so it's grouped under dwarf planet. 38. Comets are bodies which orbit the sun in the solar system. What is the shape of the orbit and how is the sun positioned within the orbit? So the shape of the orbit is elliptical, so we have the sun over here. Let me label it sun, and the orbit is something like that. So the sun is not at the center. It's a misconception that the sun is at the center. It's going to be at one side and not at the center. So it's going to be elliptical, so we remove A and B, and the sun is not at the center of it. So it's going to be a D. Number 39. Which nuclear reaction produces the release of energy to power a star? So it's definitely nuclear fusion. So we have 2 hydrogen molecules and then they fuse to form a helium nucleus. So we remove A and B. So it's a nuclear fusion of hydrogen into helium. Yeah. So the hydrogen, they fuse together to form a helium. Number 40, our last question. What's the definition of Hubble's constant? Hubble's constant is basically HO is the ratio of the speed of light at which a galaxy is moving away from Earth divided by the distance. So the speed over the distance of a galaxy. So let's look at the options. The ratio of the speed of light at which a galaxy is receding from the Earth to its distance from the Earth. Yeah. this is going to be it. So number 40 is going to be A. So Hubble constant is the ratio of the speed of a galaxy moving far away from the Earth and the distance of that galaxy. So that was the last question. This is it for today. If you have enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions, like if you want me to do anything or focus on any topic, make sure to drop them down below in the comments. And see you.